Ciao ragazzi, allora oggi facciamo una lezione una revision lesson di comparatives and superlatives perché mi sono accorta che qualcuno di voi ha ancora qualche incertezza sull'argomento. So let's start. Comparatives and superlatives. We use them when we want to compare two things, for example. When we have two things to put into comparison, we use the comparatives. And it can be majority, equality, or minority. And the comparatives when we compare two things, two objects, or two persons, with two terms of comparison. While the superlative when we have someone that stands out, something that stands out, that it's much, I don't know, for example, he is the best in the class, he's the most beautiful girl in the class, for example. It means that someone stands out. Now, let's go on. Comparatives of majority and superlatives have some similarity. In fact, they both have two forms, a long form and a short form. And we use the long form with long adjectives and the short form with short adjectives. For the comparative, we use more than for the long adjectives, and for short adjectives we add the suffix er. I have highlighted the letter R here to help you to remember which one to choose when you have to translate, because comparison, comparative, majority, you have the R here, and more and er. So in both the cases, in the long form or the short form, you always have the R. And here I have highlighted the S and the T because you form the comparative, the clue word for the superlative is most, the most, or the plus suffix st. So I have highlighted the S and T in superlative, just to help you. Next slide, please. And comparativo di maggioranza in italiano è più di. So, and as I've already told you, we have two forms, the long form with long adjectives, as you can see here. Beautiful, expensive, boring, intelligent, surprising, or tired. A short form with cheaper, bigger, fatter, stronger, and shorter. Remember always that the second term of the comparison is introduced by than. A common mistake we usually do is to introduce the second term of the comparison with that instead of than, but it's very, very important to remember this than. That's why I have highlighted it very clearly. So, more beautiful than, cheaper than. And here you can see that for short adjective, here you have only very short adjective, monosyllabic adjectives. But you can use the er form, the short form, also for bisyllabic adjectives. In fact, when they end in y, or e, or le, or ow. And for example, for adjectives ending in y, you change the y in I and that is always followed by than. Happier, you change the y in I, and then you add the suffix er. For nice, you have to cross out the e because you can't put two e together. So nicer than, only with one e, and you can say you cross out the e before putting the suffix, before writing the suffix er, or you can say that you only add r instead of er. And narrower, heavier is the same as happy, you change the y in I. And what else? Okay, remember that we have to double the consonant when the monosyllabic adjective ends with a consonant, and before the consonant you have a short vowel. Big becomes bigger, fat becomes fatter. Okay? Next one. This is a superlative, and that's why I've told you that they're similar, because as you can see, instead of more than, you have the most. You add the S and the T here, the most. The most for long adjectives. Where you had more than for the comparative of majority, you have the most for the superlative. So the most beautiful, the most expensive, the most boring, the most intelligent, the most surprising, and the most tired. And with short adjectives, we use the, always remember the, don't forget it. You have to put the, also in Italian we say il più intelligente. So don't forget the before. The cheapest, the biggest, the same rules you find here. So you double the G, you double the T, you and here you have the strongest, the shortest, the tallest, and here the happiest. You change the Y in I before writing the suffix est. So the happiest, the nicest, the simplest and the narrowest and the happiest. Okay, next one. Okay, there's something we can add. Okay, can you please go back to the previous one? Go back. Thank you. Okay, I had forgotten, no, the superlative one, the next one. Okay, as you can see here, the second term, when you, we can say, he is the most expensive clothes, the most expensive t-shirt in this shop. You use in when you have places, and you use of when you have it is not in a place. For example, in my life or in my family, he is the tallest person in my family, but the most expensive t-shirt in the shop, because it's a place. Now, next one. Thank you. Okay, here we have the comparative of minority. Instead of più è meno, less. Più era more, meno è less, but it's the same, or better, it's easier, because you don't have to change. You don't have here two forms, you only have one, because you with long adjectives you use less than, but also with short adjectives you use less cheap than, less big than, less fat than, less strong than, less heavy than, and less nice than. Or you can use the negative form. Instead of saying is less cheap than, you can say it is not as expensive as. It's not as expensive as. So you use the opposite adjective, and then you can change the sentence without changing the meaning of the sentence. And remember that also here you always have the second term of the comparison introduced by than. Next one, please. And here we have the comparatives of equality. And this is quite easy because, as you can see, you have a visual equality here because you have as and as. And the adjectives goes between. So you have as at the beginning and as at the end of the comparison. So French is as difficult as Spanish, but you can also use the negative form of this comparison, and you can say English is not as difficult, the adjective, as Chinese. Okay, next one. Next one. Thank you. Okay, now here we have, I've written here in red, than, because you must remember than with comparative of majority and comparative of minority. So they are red than, and red the written part, comparative of majority and minority. So with short, here we have short adjective, because short is a short adjective, but also tall. So if we want to say that he is più alto, he is taller than her. She is shorter than him. She is not as tall as him. And he is the tallest, superlativo, the tallest, don't forget he is the tallest man in the world. And what else? No, next one. Here we have heavy and light, and also short adjective, because heavy is a short adjective, bisyllabical adjective ending in y, and you have to remember to change the y in I. And light is another short adjective. So the comparative of majority, using heavy, we can say that the boulder, masso, stone is pietra, boulder is masso. The boulder is heavier, changing the y in I, is heavier than a feather. And the feather is lighter than the boulder. The feather is not as heavy as the boulder, and the boulder is not as light as the feather. And or we can say that the feather is less heavy than the boulder, or the boulder is less light than the feather, of course. And if we want to use the superlative, we just have to remember to put the before, don't forget it. And we can say that this is the heaviest object I've ever seen. Next one, please. Next one, please. Okay, also always with short adjectives here. The ice cube is colder than fire, and fire is hotter. Remember that with a short adjective ending with a consonant that has a vowel before, you have to double the consonant. So fire is hotter with double T than the ice cube. Is not as, the ice cube is not as cold as, is not as hot as fire, and fire is not as cold as the ice cube. Fire is the coldest, superlative. Fire is the coldest thing you can have at home, and the ice cube, sorry, fire is the hottest thing you can have at home, and the ice cube is the coldest thing you can have, you can touch at home. Okay, thank you. Next one. Here we have two long adjectives. We have beautiful and intelligent. So we have the long form of the comparative. So we can say she is, with a long form, more beautiful than him, and he is more intelligent than her. She is less intelligent than him, but he is not as beautiful as her. Superlative. He is the most intelligent man I have ever met. Okay, next one. Okay, here we have strong, stronger for the comparative form. Look, the short adjective adds the suffix er, so strong, stronger, and the strongest. He is the strongest in this room. And of course we use in because the room or the gym is a place. And here we have said, sadder, doubling the D, the letter D, and adding the suffix er, or the saddest. Remember, the saddest. He is the saddest person of my family. Family is not a place, so we use of my family. And here we can say difficult. If we have to pass an exam and we just have to study a book, even if it is quite a big book, but a lot of pages, so we can say that it's a difficult exam, a difficult test, but this is more difficult because we have more books to study. But this is the most difficult test I have ever studied. Now, here we have slow, slower, and the slowest. Okay, remember they for the superlative, the lowest, and it ends with st. The superlative starts with t because you can't forget the article the determinative article the, and it ends with the st. So it starts with t and ends with t. Now, ora la lezione di ripasso è terminata, spero che adesso le cose siano più chiare. Ho allegato in didattica anche, troverete su Google Classroom dei link per fare degli esercizi, esercitatevi e vi ho allegato anche un altro video. Buon lavoro!